Welcome along to Donington Park for the start of the 2017 F3 Cup season. Well, these cars could really stretch their legs on the 2-mile national circuit that we're on. Let's guide you through the grid for the first race of the season. Car number 11, Shane Kelly, the runner-up in last year's championship, will sit there on pole position. Alongside will be car number 19, Cian Carey, the Irishman. Row 2 of the grid will be Jacopo Sebastiani and number 7, Robbie Watts, with row 3 being Stuart Wiltshire and James Heffernan. Tony Bishop and Peter Venn on row 4, and 66 Malcolm Scott and Dave Gillett line up on the 5th row. Watch out for the reigning champion, though, George Lyne. He had an off in qualifying, only completed 3 laps and will start from the very tail end of the field. The red lights are about to come on, the revs begin to rise, and we're about to get the 2017 F3 Cup season underway at Donington Park. A great start from pole position from Shane Kelly. Very slow away and going nowhere is Tony Bishop at the moment. He eventually gets the car fired into live, but he's a long way adrift of the rest. But it is going to be Shane Kelly that leads. Jacopo Sebastiani has come through into 2nd position, and that looks like Robbie Watts was able to slot himself through into 3rd place. Here's George Lyne for the tail end of the field, already working his way through and past Mark Harrison as we ride on board through Craner Curves. Up the inside of Peter Venn, another place gained, and then as he hits the apex at the old hairpin, he's looking to try and get through as many cars as early on as he can in this race, all of the time whilst this man here is hoping that he's able to pull away. Not at the moment. Jacopo Sebastiani is sitting there in 2nd place. Robbie Watts, number 7, the man from Thundersley, there in 3rd place. He's close as they head up towards the double apex blind entry right-hander at Coppice Corner. Can't quite squeeze his way through as yet, and therefore just has to sit behind the London-based Italian as they head down the exhibition straight onto the brakes and flick right and left in towards Roberts at the conclusion of lap number 1. So through Roberts chicane they'll go. It is going to be Shane Kelly out front that leads. Jacopo Sebastiani there in 2nd position, but he's still under pressure from Robbie Watts, who sits there in 3rd position. 4th place at this stage, just menacing in the background. That looks like it's Stuart Wiltshire that's there in 4th place, so he's come up from 5th on the grid. It's Cian Carey, the Irishman, who initially got a good start, but he finds himself down in 6th at the end of the first lap, as now Robbie Watts is starting to attack for 2nd place. Is he able to find a way through? Not on this occasion as they head through the Craner Curves. So still remains in 3rd position at the wheel of his Dallara F3 So harking back to the 2011 British Formula 3 or European Formula 3 Championship season, works his way through McLean's Corner. All of these cars that are newer built, those between 2005 and 2016, all sit in the Cup class, whereas the Trophy class, which we see one car out in this weekend, Adrian Holy, that caters for cars that were built between 1981 and through to the end of 2004. And all of the time, Shane Kelly now starting to just build a very slight advantage between himself and Jacopo Sebastiani, who sits there in 2nd, but he's still under this pressure, isn't he? Robbie Watts is just not letting him go at this stage. And the man from Thundersley, who claimed 4 wins in the championship last year, is hot on the heels of Jacopo. Further down through the order, that's a shuffle for position. That's Richard Purcell, who's managed to squeeze his way through and ahead of Adrian Holy, the man from Harrogate, say the sole representative in the trophy class this weekend. But for our race leader, he is now starting to pull away from this pair. Jacopo Sebastiani and Robbie Watts still close to each other, but you can see the amount of daylight between 1st and 2nd just starting to increase now. Robbie Watts turns his way through the right-hander at McLean's Corner. He has been closer in the early stage of this race, so he is just dropping away a shade more. Not a great deal at this stage, as they now turn their way through Coppice Corner. Let's see whether he might be able to pick up a little bit of the toe on the straight. No, it looks as though he's just a bit too far away. The top 3 looking fairly equally spread, aren't they? It is the man from Wolverhampton that leads the race, Shane Kelly, who this time last year at Donington Park managed to start his season in the best possible fashion with a treble win. There's the Irishman, Cian Carey, moving up to F3 Cup this year. He's looking to try and close in on the car that sits just ahead of him. That's James Heffernan. So the number 8 car of James Heffernan, the meat in the sandwich. He's looking to try and squeeze his way through past Stuart Wiltshire, but the man from Malden's having none of that. So Heffernan just needs to be careful. He needs to attack and defend at the same time here. So down through the Craner Curves, they'll work their way as further down through the order. That's number 66, Malcolm Scott, going wheel to wheel with Peter Venn. Peter Venn looking to try and stick his elbows out, and is he able to hang on to it? Looks as though he just did there, yet. So the man from London hanging on to the place, as now James Heffernan looks as though he's coming under a bit more pressure from Cian Carey. This is for 5th and 6th position, and now that they're squabbling, that might just release the car at the front of this little trio, that being Stuart Wiltshire, the opportunity to pull away. So it's 3 for the lead. It's a trio for 4th, 5th and 6th places. Now, is Cian Carey going to be close enough this time as they head in towards the Robert chicane to squeeze away through and past James Heffernan? No, it is still the number 8 car that hangs on to 5th position. Frustrated Irishman Cian Carey sitting there behind in 6th place. Over the start-finish line they'll go. He'll pick up a bit of the tow as they come down the Wheatcroft straight, but again, he's not quite close enough, so the order still remains the same at this stage, with Wiltshire there in 4th place, James Heffernan in 5th place, Cian Carey there in 6th position, as they start to press on down through the Craner curves once more. So still got this great fight going on. And elsewhere down through the order, this is the fight for 7th place. Number 66, Malcolm Scott, coming under pressure from the blue and white car. That will be Peter Venn that sits behind, and there's a queue of cars behind them as well. That will include the slow starting car in the hands of the man from Whipsnade, Tony Bishop, there at the wheel of his white and Dayglow blue car. But Malcolm Scott doing a great job of keeping everybody at bay, and there's a little bit of smoke coming from the tail end of that car. Not entirely sure all is well with Malcolm Scott's car, so we'll keep an eye on that one, the man from Upminster. Let's have a look as he heads up into the braking area for McLean's corner. Yeah, there's definitely something coming from the tail end of that car. Peter Venn is now really right up onto terms with him. He's also got the slow starting Tony Bishop, who's made great progress. He got off the line almost last, didn't he? But the number 4 car now really starting to work its way up through the order, and this is a great fight that's going on. Who is it? We've got Malcolm Scott, we've got Peter Venn, we've got Tony Bishop, then we've got Dave Gillett, and is this time Peter Venn going to squeeze his way up the inside of Malcolm Scott? No, we're not. After Dave Gillett, then we've got Mark Harrison, and then the next of the cars is number 49, Richard Purcell. So that is a great little, 6-car battle heading over the start-finish line now. Sort of 3 and then a slightly larger gap and then another 3. Richard Purcell, number 49, having a quick look up the inside of Mark Harrison. Can he squeeze his way through? The ever-worsening car of Malcolm Scott still at the front of this little train of cars at this stage. But I do fear that all is not well. It looks more like steam rather than smoke, because it's not hanging around in the air as much as you would expect smoke to. Whatever it is, it's not going to help him. But at this stage, it doesn't seem to be overly hindering him either. Right, up towards McLean's corner they come, and it does look now as though Peter Venn has gone through, so 1 place lost for Malcolm Scott. He now needs to defend from that car there, number 4, because Tony Bishop is absolutely in his wheel tracks onto the brakes. They turn their way through the right-hander at Coppice Corner. Well, Tony Bishop is right up onto terms. Then it's Dave Gillett who's not that far behind. Then you see Richard Purcell and Mark Harrison, so they're all still together. Tony Bishop looks one way, decides better of it, takes a wider line as he can in towards the first right-hand element at Roberts Corner. And as they now squeeze their way onto the start-finish line, Malcolm Scott looking as though he's struggling for pace a little bit here, because he's got Tony Bishop looking to try and draw himself alongside on the left-hand side. That's the outside line for Redgate Corner, but he sweeps his way through, and again you can see that steam or whatever it is just coming for the tail end of Malcolm Scott's car, and surely the water temperatures in that car will be rising. Either that or he's depositing oil around the circuit, so it looks more like it's steam than anything else, and it's just starting to hamper his pace now. He's lost 2 places. He's now got cars still queuing up behind him, the next of which is going to be Dave Gillett, so it's the man from Harlow that's next to try and pick the pocket of Malcolm Scott if at all he can. And if the door is left open, he'll be straight through. Richard Purcell, the man from Stockport, won't be that far behind either. Here is Cian Carey. He's got himself ahead of James Heffernan, so we've had 1 change for order. So the Irishman goes through now ahead of James Heffernan. So order is still as it was at the front. Shane Kelly still leading from Jacopo Sebastiani and Robbie Watts, but Cian Carey will now be up into 4th place. Here's Richard Purcell having a look at the inside of Dave Gillett, the two of them side by side through Robert chicane. Good driving by both, just about giving each other enough room, as Malcolm Scott, by the look of things, is indeed heading for the pit lane. Whatever the problem is, that has hampered his progress. And for Richard Purcell, well, he is now at the front of the train. He's got Dave Gillett looking to try and squeeze his way alongside. The two of them still side by side. They were side by side through Roberts. They're side by side through Redgate Corner. Great driving from both of them. Not quite sure who's going to come out on top. Number 4, Tony Bishop, now that he has managed to gain some places, is looking to try and close in on the next car ahead, as over the start-finish line comes what is still the battle for 2nd and 3rd. Jacopo Sebastiani has not been able to pull away particularly far at all from the number 7 machine in the hands of Robbie Watts. Jacopo won 1 round of the F3 Cup last year. That was at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, whereas for Robbie Watts, he claimed 4 separate wins, and they came at 3 separate circuits, if memory serves me correctly. Wasn't here at Donington Park, which is Shane Kelly, our race leader, made it a treble victory to open up his season in 2016. And you can see he's already starting to pull away yet further from this pair behind. So here comes the squabble for 2nd and for 3rd position, as this man here, Shane Kelly, out front and leading the race at this stage. Through the right-hander at Coppice he will go. The man from Wolverhampton in the car that's prepared by the students studying motorsport engineering there leads the race. Dave Gillett just ahead of this little battle. Richard Purcell side by side with Mark Harrison through Redgate corner. Can the man from Worcester make it through? It looks as though he's just about squeezed his way through. And is the Magic Motorsport car going to gain the place? Well, yeah, Richard Purcell sticking his elbows out. He's having none of it at this stage, but Mark Harrison eventually is able to squeeze his way through. Place gained for Mark Harrison. Place lost, unfortunately, for Richard Purcell. As for Peter Venn, well, he is still circulating under this huge pressure from Tony Bishop. This will be for what is 6th and 7th places at this stage in the race. And as they work their way onto the exhibition straight, Tony Bishop has put himself in prime position to have a quick look up the inside here, coming into the braking area for Roberts Corner. Peter Venn defends a little bit, but doesn't squeeze Tony Bishop too much, so they work their way out of the left-hand element of it, back over the start-finish line, and well, here it may well be another opportunity on the run up towards Redgate Corner for Tony Bishop, sitting well and truly behind the slipstream of the number 9 car. And is he able to work his way through? Not on this occasion. So the Dallara F311 stays still behind the F308. And as they thread their way down through the Craner curves once more, fabulous place to spectate from, a wonderful place to drive a car around Donington Park, but the Craner curves is one of those corners, isn't it, in UK, if not world motorsport. Up towards what will be McLean's corner, onto the brakes, in towards the right-hander. Peter Venn having to still work tirelessly hard to try and keep at bay the man from Whipsnade. As yet, Tony Bishop has still not quite been able to unlock the door, has he? Through Coppice Corner, once more onto the exhibition straight, and well, last time through, Tony Bishop, I think, was a little bit closer. He's just fallen away, so I don't think he'll do a great deal this time, other than follow Peter Venn through the right and the left flicks, as they still continue to squabble over what is 7th and 8th positions. And the laps are getting chalked up all of the time as well. In the background, here is now a fantastic fight for 2nd and 3rd place. Robbie Watts has really reeled in Jacopo Sebastiani over the course of the last lap or so. And can the man from Thundersley in Essex try and squeeze his way through into 2nd place? There's also traffic up the road that we'll need dealing with before too much longer. Philip Jeans at the wheel of car number 17, the man from Mundham, is the next that they're going to catch. And Philip takes the correct racing line through Redgate Corner. Maybe just compromised Jacopo Sebastiani a little bit. But on the way out of the corner, is he going to be able to squeeze his way through? No, for the moment, Philip Jeans, I don't think quite has seen that the faster cars are bearing down on him, and this might be the opportunity here for Robbie Watts to try and squeeze his way through. The Raw Motorsport car, Volkswagen engine, looking to try and squeeze his way through and past Philip Jeans. Jacopo Sebastiani is eventually able to pass the back marker through Swant's curve. Robbie Watts does it on the brakes through McLean's. So 2nd and 3rd place is now released from the grasp of the slower traffic for the moment, because there's more traffic that needs dealing with. Here is the next of the squabbles trying to work its way through and past the back markers. And that is Malcolm Scott, and he needs to get on with the job very quickly because he's got the Irishman, Cian Carey, absolutely with him now. Doesn't matter where you look, there's either battles going on or traffic to deal with. For Jacopo Sebastiani, it is the latter. It's traffic to deal with. He needs to try and work his way past Richard Purcell. Thankfully, he should meet him on the start-finish line. So, yeah, Jacopo Sebastiani through and past the number 58 car of Richard Purcell. Robbie Watts will squeeze his way through as well before they get towards Redgate Corner. So more back marker lappery dealt with. And all of the time, extending his leading margin out front is Shane Kelly, whilst he is working his way also through traffic. Here is the number 9 car of Peter Venn. He is now looking as though he is circulating in 8th position because Tony Bishop, number 4, has been able to go through, whilst we were looking at some of the other battles that were going on. And again, now that he has gone through, Tony Bishop starting to pull away a little bit. Tony qualified 7th, had the poor start, and is now back to his starting position of 7th place. So it's been a long old race for Tony just to get back to where he was before the lights went out. And here is now our race leader, Shane Kelly, about to put another lap on Dave Gillett as he threads his way through the Roberts chicane. Further down through the order, a lap adrift now is Mark Harrison, fighting away still with Richard Purcell. They've been pretty much inseparable for the whole of the race so far. But for Shane Kelly, he is now looking good for a potential victory here. So he started his 2016 campaign with 3 wins on the bounce at this equivalent meeting last year, and he's looking good for at least victory number 1 of the season, because Jacopo Sebastiani and the car that he's doing battle with, Robbie Watts, are just too far away at this stage. So Shane Kelly neatly through what is the old hairpin, and now pressing on up towards Schwantz Curve. He's now pressing on into the latter stages of the race. He's built the margin between this pair here, that being Jacopo Sebastiani and Robbie Watts, who he certainly won't be able to see in his mirrors. Tony Bishop also now starting to pull away, now that he occupies 7th place, pulling away from the white and blue car of Peter Venn. And further down through the order, it looks as though there's another little battle just coming up towards the breaking over for Roberts now. This will be Mark Harrison, who's had pretty much a race-long fight, hasn't he, with number 49, Richard Purcell. Richard just behind at the wheel of the yellow car with its red flashes, sitting very much on the gearbox of the man from Worcester. And those are now the cars that are a lap behind this man here, Shane Kelly, pressing on, turning the car that's engineered by the students of the University of Wolverhampton through the right-hander at Redgate, and then starting to propel himself downhill through what is Craner Curves and in towards the old hairpin, onto the brakes, down a gear, put the car in towards the right-hander. Here is George Line from the tail end of the grid. He's just been able to squeeze through and ahead of James Heffernan, and James didn't put up a great deal of defence there and is already losing time, and by the look of things is destined for the pits, so problems for James Heffernan. That's an enormous shame for the man from Abbots Langley, and that now moves George Line up another place now. We are now on the last lap. George Line from the tail end of the field will be up to 6th. But this man here is on course to replicate what he did for the first race of 2016, and that is claim a win at Donington Park. So Shane Kelly heads onto the brakes, flicks his way right and left at Roberts for the final time and accelerates his way towards the checkered flag. It's a win for Shane Kelly in round 1 of the 2017 F3 Cup. He and the students from Wolverhampton University will be very pleased with that. Jacopo Sebastiani comes through and finishes in 2nd place, a race-long fight that he had with Robbie Watts, who comes through and finishes in 3rd place, and they were just ahead of Cian Carey as well. So confirmation of the results. The win goes the way of Shane Kelly. Jacopo Sebastiani was 2nd, ahead of Robbie Watts in 3rd, with Cian Carey, Stuart Wiltshire, George Line, Tony Bishop, Peter Venn and Dave Gillett completing the top 10. Let's hear from our race winner on the podium.
After Snetterton last year, there's a bit of hill on the day, but I think, yeah, a clean sheet, we worked hard and they deserve everything.
Yeah, I mean, they work incredibly hard and they're incredibly passionate about it. We heard about it from you last year.
Yes, it takes ages to hug everyone.
Yeah,
there's so many of them.
That's a nice problem to have. Right?
Oh, the guy is very good. This guy is fighting quick.
Yeah, it's not fair, is it?
This is his house.
Yeah, good race, good opening account. Here tomorrow, so just keep chipping away and
right on the tail of Jacopo towards the end of the race.
yeah, I got past him a couple of times. We were side by side, but going into the chicane, it's just, you know, two don't go into one, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.